right, good morning. How's everyone doing? All right, wanted to give you a few housekeeping reminders before we begin. Number one, this week you have some assignments to complete. All right. If you remember, you have 3 quizzes this semester in this course. The quizzes come from the large group lectures, these sessions, and any assignments that we've given. So your first quiz is going to occur this week, and it's already been loaded to Blackboard. If you check your email, you received an email with instructions for how to complete this quiz. This is worth 50 points for your grade. 20 questions. It's a one-shot deal, so you only have one opportunity to do it, and it shuts down late Sunday night. So the link is up there right now. You can take the quiz, but it's going to disappear Sunday right after midnight, and you won't have another opportunity to take it. And you'll forfeit 50 points if you don't take it. So there's an email in your NSU email inbox right now with instructions, and you can log into Blackboard. I was just going to pull it up here and show you. You go to Assignments, Exams, go to Quiz 1, and there it is. So you click on it, click OK, 20 questions. Questions coming from the large group sessions 1, 2, 3, and 4 up through last week. So you can expect maybe 3 or 4 questions, some MapWorks questions, some other questions related to Strings Quest. So be aware of that. Second, on page 30, if you have your workbook, turn to page 30. This is not so much a quiz, it's a survey, a health success survey, 50 points in the class, sexual assault prevention and alcohol abuse prevention. Next week we have a speaker coming, Libby Rogers, our coordinator of student health services, and you have to have this survey complete by the next class session next week. So it'll probably take 20 to 30 minutes, depending upon how fast you are. Instructions for taking these surveys are on page 30 of your workbook. So review that page and get that done this week. It's all automated. You don't need to turn anything in. We'll be able to know who's taken it and give you points accordingly in a few weeks. So those 2 items I just wanted to remind you about. So far that's 100 points this week for the class, 10% of your grade. So be aware of that. If you have a friend that's not in class today, make sure you get in touch with them. Remind them to check their NSU email. Those 2, the quiz and the survey, are both in their NSU email. Instructions on that. Secondly, you've all taken, or for most of you have taken the MapWorks survey. I wanted to provide some information to you that I think you'll find interesting based upon your results. 85% of you want a bachelor's degree or higher. And you can see the breakdown there. 33% want to get a bachelor's degree and stop. 29% want to go on and get a master's degree. And 23% want to earn a PhD or other terminal degree. Those are really high aspirations, and that's great. And we would encourage you to keep focused on that. But remember that if you're missing class, if you're not studying the number of hours that you need to be studying each week, you're never going to get there. So if this is what you want, commit to it. Talk to people who have done what you're about to do. You know, I'm just finishing my master's degree. I can talk to you about that. Others, Evelyn and others, have earned their PhD. So we can give you a lot of advice and guidance. But you gotta make sure that you're taking the actions necessary to get you where you want to go. 36% of you are undecided on a major. 64% have chosen a major. But normally, college students who come in with a major in mind, over half of them usually change their major or change their mind 1 or 2 times or more throughout their time in college. So come in with an open mind. 53% of you are not struggling in a class. 47% of you are struggling in a class. That's about a little over 1,000 people that took the assessment, took this MapWorks assessment. So a little over 500 freshmen are struggling in 1 or more courses. So you can begin to see that, if this is you, you're not alone, first of all. It happens. But what are you going to do over the next several weeks? This is a real moment of truth for you. Are you going to get the tutoring? Are you going to increase the number of hours in the week that you're studying? What are you going to do? Here in October, you're going to do a checkup survey with MapWorks. And it's going to ask you, are you still struggling in that same course? Are you going to be able to say, yeah, I conquered that, I'm much better, I've done what I need to do, or are you still going to be struggling? Are you going to be struggling in more courses? So these are things to think about. If you're struggling in a class, will you turn things around? 89% of you think you'll earn A's and B's this semester. And that would be the goal. Get A's and B's. That's a good goal to have, and we would hope to see that, 89%. Now, 57% of last fall's freshmen at the end of their first semester had A's and B's. So we would hope for 89% of you to have that as a goal, but make sure you're studying and you're doing the things necessary to do that, to get that. Talking about homesickness and missing your family, 83% of you miss your family back home. 43% feel upset and want to go home. 30% of you report homesickness as being pretty distressing, taking you off track, causing disruptions and distractions for you academically. So number one, again, you're not alone. If that's you, you're not alone. The second thing I'd maybe say on that is that we need each other. Try to work on your own support network of friends, of professors, of staff. I'd be happy to help and talk to you about that. We want you to make sure and feel at home here, and I know that can be hard. A majority of you get 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night. At least that's what you report. But research shows that college students need at least 9 hours of sleep each night. So if you are tired all the time, if you're having trouble staying awake in class, if you're having trouble doing that, you might evaluate first, how many hours of sleep are you getting each night? And maybe adjust from there. And finally, a majority of you study 5 hours per week outside of class. That's what most everyone rated themselves, as studying 5 hours a week outside of class. To get A's and B's this semester, 89% of you want to do that. You've got to study at a minimum 10 hours a week outside of class. A's and B's are correlated with 10 or more hours of study each week. So, if you want A's and B's, you're not going to get there by just studying 5 hours a week. If you're studying 5 hours a week, maybe you can hope to get probably C's or so in college, or worse. Consider this information. Consider doubling your efforts. Consider the next few weeks really digging in and giving a whole lot more effort to your studies, to school, to getting tutoring help, to really pulling this thing off. So attendance is huge. Attendance in this class, attendance in all your classes. I'd be real wary of a professor or any professional staff member who says, go to class if you want, especially as faculty members, I'm not going to hold you accountable if you don't come to class, or I don't have an attendance policy. Be wary of that, because those people really don't necessarily care about keeping you on track. We care about your success. That's why we have an attendance policy that says if you miss several times, your final grade is going to be affected. We care about your success. Attendance is huge, and I know these folks will testify today that if you don't go to your classes, you're not going to graduate, you're not going to be able to pass your classes, and you won't get where you want to go. So be mindful of these things, and we'll talk more about MapWorks later on in the semester. So thank you very much.
Did anybody see anything surprising on that paper that Brian just talked to you about? No? Good. I hope you're not surprised in December then. That's what we're hoping for. So a little bit about why we put this where we did is all of those things that Brian talked about with MapWorks and where you all are and what we're seeing has a lot to do with how you manage your time and the goals that you set. Our overarching goal, of course, based on what you all have said, is to actually attain a bachelor's degree. So what goes in with that is that you take care of business day to day, that you manage your time well, that you set those small goals to do well this semester, this week, this month, and those kinds of things. So we're going to talk a little bit about time management today. Now, Sarah and I don't really go with that philosophy that there is one way to teach time management, or we can give you a top 10 list of things to do, and it works for every one of you. So what we're telling you today are ways to maybe find out something that works for you individually. So first off, what we want to know, how many of you have talked about time management, studied it, had tips on it in high school or in some other format? Anybody? You have to raise your hands high because it is dark down here. I see 5-ish. Okay. All right. So the rest of you, no experience with time management. Is that right? No seminars, no talking about it. Don't do it, don't want to, something that way. Okay, so we want to, I didn't hear that, so you got to be really plain here. So let's think about all of this stuff. We want to help you be able to do this well. And I'm telling you, folks, there are people I work with and people who have worked for years and years and decades who still haven't mastered this. So if you can figure it out now, you will save yourself and your future supervisors and supervisees and fellow coworkers a whole lot of trouble. So we've got some folks with us here, your peer instructors. You will recognize some of them. Yay for being brave to sit under the bright lights up here. You're excited about that, right? Yeah, can you tell they're like, ah. You can clap for them. That's good. Now, whose group was that? That's mine. That's yours? Yay, yay. Very, very good. You're doing this? Okay. Yeah. I'm just making sure. You paid them for that? Well, there went all of her peer instructor salary on that cheer, so you probably ought to do it again at some point so she gets her money's worth. So we're going to have them introduce themselves, tell us, where they're from and what their majors are, because what your major is in your coursework depends a little bit on how you do your time management.
And can you guys also tell us what your strengths are?
And that's okay because we're all still learning our strengths, and I know some of you know them. So see? Yeah. So let's start wherever you want, as long as all 4 of you go. And somebody does have to be first, so...
My name is Sonia Norman.
That's okay, you can clap. That's welcome.
And I'm a fine arts major with a psychology minor. My strengths are achiever, developer, harmony, connectedness, and restorative.
Good.
My name is Nick, and I am a social studies education major. And what else are we supposed to say? Oh, my strengths are context, connectedness, belief, relator, and self-assurance.
Yeah, is that your group? Yeah. And this is going, on YouTube for our FYE and Freshman Connection stuff. So excellent that you're clapping. Thank you. We like it.
Hello. My name is Morgan Mazzone. I am going to declare my major this semester, and it's going to be speech pathology. And what was the other question? Oh, my strengths. Woo, includer, belief, competition, and relator. Those are mine. I had to think about it. Sorry.
I'm Megan. My major is secondary English education, and my strengths are achiever, futuristic, strategic, focus, and restorative.
Very good. Thank you. All right, so our first question, and you all will be able to ask them questions too if some come up. So our very first question to you all: what surprised you the most about having to manage your time in college? The most surprising thing. And they've seen these questions and prepared for weeks, so it should be good.
I was really surprised with how much time management I had to learn, how much that I didn't already know. And I think it was a good thing because it is a big part of maturing and growing up. But I didn't have my mom to help me. I didn't have my teachers to help me. And so I made it a point to surround myself with friends and peers who were responsible and also trying to manage their time well, because that helped me learn how to do it better.
Anybody else learn anything or were surprised at something?
Yes, Evelyn.
Thank you.
Thank you. I learned that I think I hang out with people who don't, manage their time very well, but you do, first semester, I think I really struggled with staying up really late and sleeping in till that last second and then going to class. And there was this one class, and it was health, and Coach Cole, I don't know if any of you guys have him. You can tell him that you know me because he'll probably make fun of me, but I struggled so much with getting there on time, and I'm kind of embarrassed of that, but now it's like I'm learning still how to manage my time and how to go to bed a little bit earlier so that I can get up for that class. And you feel so much better if you get up and you take care of yourself and you give yourself an hour a day to like get ready for the day, because your day is so much more successful if you get up a little bit earlier. I know it's, you're like, man, I don't want to get up. And that's something I really struggled with last year, was managing my time to where I'd go to sleep and get enough rest so that my day was successful. And so that's the main thing. And then, too, you study more and you get all your things done and you can be more involved, too. So.
Now, Morgan has just said something really important there. She said that she feels better when she gets up and has about an hour or so to get ready and all those kinds of things. Any of you like that? Okay, sure. Any of you, there's no way that works for you. Okay? That's important to note. This is where it becomes an individual thing. That works well for her. It's not going to work well if she gets up 20 minutes before class and tries to get there. Neither option is bad. You need to figure out which option works well for you. I am a maximizer, so getting up and kind of wandering around for a while does not work for me. It's, I get up with enough time to get ready and to be where I'm at. But I know that about myself, so that affects when I get up, what I do, and how I start projects and all of those things. So know yourself. That was a good point there. Anything else so far?
I think the more you get involved at school, the less free time you have. And I have problems with wasting lots of time, so I have to write everything down that I'm going to do so that I remember it. One, because I don't remember things very well, but I write it all down, and that's how I have to manage time. Because if I don't, I realize I waste most of the day doing nothing. So, but I found when I got more involved in school, I had less time to not do anything. So the more you get involved in, the more stuff you have to do, and the more you're responsible for.
So he's talking about a calendar there. Yep, you can clap for that. That's a good comment. He's talking about a calendar. You guys keep calendars? 3 of you? All? Okay, Sarah's putting a calendar up here. This is the student involvement calendar with activities and things that are going on. Now, the important thing to think about here, how many of you out here actually keep calendars? Have a calendar? Paper? Okay. Okay, how many of you actually use those calendars that you have? Okay, hands go down. That's true. Not everybody can do that. Any of you keep electronic calendars? Okay, that's something to think about too. You have a preference in those. Some work better for others. If you're a person who writes everything down, is yours a paper calendar? Yeah. Yeah, you may need that. Mine is completely electronic. Everything that I need to do is on my phone and with me, so it reminds me of where I need to be. If I were to utilize a paper calendar at this point in time, it would be lost somewhere on campus within a day. I would have no idea where it is. Due to the nature and environment, the type of job that I do, I've had to make a different choice. Okay? So you all need to think about that. Paper calendars will work for some of you. Some of you will need electronic. You need to make that choice. Not a choice to have or not, but which type to choose. Okay? So that's one of your biggest things in time management.
There are going to be some of you who don't prefer to use a calendar, and that's okay too. Some of you might have adaptability, and you manage your day just by how things come. That's okay as well. So keep in mind that calendars, I have to have one, but sometimes we have things that come up, that really work with those of us who have adaptability.
So find yourself a good guide to at least keep up with your assignments in class. So that's the important thing there. Any other thoughts, questions at this point? I hear some noise, but I'm not exactly sure what it's about, if it's just noise or questions. So let me know if it's something we need to really pay attention to. Okay, what is the one thing you wish you would have known about time management before you got to college? And some of you got a little bit on this, but...
The one thing I wish I would have known is that, you're responsible for yourself. Your mom's not there, your teachers aren't there. They're not going to be like, hey, you have to turn your assignment in next Wednesday when you come to class. That's all on you. And that's kind of where I write everything down that I do and how I have my calendar in class with me, because that's totally on me. Whereas in high school, every day you have, Miss so-and-so telling you to turn in your work. And so that gets really difficult, especially when you're not just doing school, but you're going to school and you have a job and you like to be involved on campus. That's what I wish I would have known, is that you have to be responsible for yourself. And it's not just like, you're at church camp and you can do whatever you want.
My dad actually offered to call me every day at college and wake me up, and I was like, I don't think I need that. Then I was like, might have been a good idea, but you are, that it totally changes, and you've got to take that responsibility for yourself, and that's probably one of the biggest changes you'll have.
One thing that I wish I would have known whenever I started is to set 2 alarms, because sometimes I sleep through 1, and I've even slept through 2 before, and I didn't figure out that I could set 2 different ones until about a year after I started college, and it's really benefited me. So if you're someone who sleeps through your alarm, my class, you can set 2.
You can do that, college. Had a student the other day in a class talk about missing a class that she needed to go to. She's like, it wasn't my fault. I had nothing to do with missing that. And they're like, whose fault was it? She's like, my alarm, it didn't go off. We're like, oh, okay. Still pretty sure it's your fault. So you want to make sure that you're not that person and take some care of that. Okay, any other surprises? One thing to note on this, folks, these students up here are telling you how busy they are and how scheduled they have to be. Know that grows. Your calendar now that you have had for the first 5 weeks of college is probably not the schedule and calendar and experiences that you will have all throughout college. All right, you will get progressively busier. So realize that and make plans for it. Okay, your very best piece of advice for students, what would that be?
Thank you, Evelyn. My best piece of advice would be don't drive your car, ride with your friends, tell them you're out of gas. Because you come back and there's no parking and then you get a ticket and it's not fun. Because that's my best piece of advice, because I always carpool and I always offer the ride, and I've gotten a couple parking tickets and it wasn't my fault, I promise. I didn't mean to.
Which, if you're driving back in order to get to class on time, is probably a really good hint.
So maybe as far as the time management part goes, you want to make sure that you give yourself enough time to deal with the parking and the ticket if you need to take care of it then and all that stuff.
That is one of the worst excuses for missing class.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I didn't mean it like you should miss class, but just saying, I thought we were just giving advice in general.
Okay. It all relates. It really does.
My best piece of advice is to get involved, which might go a little bit against what we're talking about with getting organized and managing your time better, because I work better whenever I have my schedule filled. And whenever I came to NSU, I was homesick and I had trouble going to classes. I didn't enjoy them. This class is stupid. Why do I have to take it? All that kind of stuff. But I had to find things outside of class and things outside of my dorm room to get involved in, and that connected me to NSU and gave me it made me like being here more. And there are all kinds of things for you guys, things that I'm still learning about that I can get involved in, and I'm a senior. So if you don't like it here, or if you're bored, or if you need something to take up your time, look into that, because I think that it will help you enjoy your college career here a lot more.
I think that's good advice. You all in your general education requirements, those may not be the classes that you identify most with. You may not enjoy all of those things, but they're there for a purpose and to help you get a holistic education. So as you go through things and you're more focused on your major and the things that you love, some of those things become a little more clear. But just know that you may not love chemistry, but you still got to do something like that. Okay? Other advice pieces?
Mine's not really advice, but just so you guys know, you can make it from Lozier to the lower level of the science building in under 5 minutes whenever you're late for class. So there's no reason not to go to class, because I've done that many a times. And science and I aren't best friends, so you can get there. Promise you can. You might look like a fool getting there, but you'll make it to class.
I would really appreciate it. This is totally off topic, but if we could keep the chatter to a minimum, because we've got our lovely peer instructors up here who have generously volunteered to share their perspectives with you, and it's very disrespectful to be talking the entire time that they're talking. Thank you.
Yes, I've been waiting for you all to shut up. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, you're going to have, my advice is grow up now. Don't be an idiot. My dad tells me that all the time.
Excellent advice. Don't be an idiot.
I see so many idiots every day around here. Just don't be one. No, my first semester of college, I got up at noon. My first class was at noon. And now I'm where I have a required class that's offered once a year at 8 o'clock in the morning. And it's hard still to get up out of bed and go to that class, but I have to take that class. It's offered once a year. And if you want to get through college, you have to do things like that. So it's you kind of have to suck it up and get through it sometimes. So that's just a piece of advice, is that learn to manage your time now because you're going to have to do it. So.
And it's a good point to just be able to take care of some things and own up to your responsibilities and go on. You will meet people for the rest of your life who whine about everything that they do, that they have to do. They whine about work, they whine about families, they whine about everything. So probably some good advice there just to get on with what you got to do. Do you all have questions for these folks? They've been around here a little bit. Any thoughts about time management? Any hints that you might like? Anything that you'd want to share with this? Questions? Because no question implies we all have this down and we've got it.
Please ask us a question.
That probably wasn't going to be a good one. So.
It just takes one person to start.
Be a leader.
Shane.
How do you enjoy your classes? Because my classes are, how do you enjoy yours? How do you keep yourself busy?
I think it's different for each person. I have a really, really hard time in lecture classes. I lose focus and I daydream a lot, and so I have to make myself take notes. And I doodle a lot on my paper, so I am doing something that has, like, it keeps my attention, but I'm also listening at the same time. A lot of my classes, though, aren't lecture classes because I'm a fine arts major. And so if you're fine arts or music or something like that, then you might understand it's a little bit different. I'm just constantly doing something, and so I don't know, it helps me maintain my focus. But each person is different. If you have to take notes and you don't like taking notes, maybe try using different color pens or doodling on your paper, or I don't know. Does that help?
You can also make a game out of it, because I had this really, 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 really boring class. I won't tell you who the professor is because you guys have to take it. But anyways, he tended to say a lot in class, and I was in there with about 10 people I knew. So what we did every day is we'd tally how many times he said in the class, and then we would just count them, and then every day we would set a new record. One time in class he said 274 times. So you can pay attention that way.
I did that with one of my professors too, but his word was interesting. He said interesting. That's interesting. And another interesting fact about that interesting subject is that it's interesting. And so we would tally mark it too and make a game out of it.
A good way to make a class more interesting is, wait, what? Huh? Speaking of interesting classes, sorry, it was just on my mind. Okay, but is if you go and you find someone in the class, like I'm a woo, so I love meeting people, which kind of hurts me when I'm trying to study, like in the library, for instance. But because I just want to meet everyone in the library. But as far as advice goes and making it more interesting is if you find people in that class that just love that subject, I promise it'll rub off on you and it'll make you love it more. Like one of my good friends, I don't care for government. I just don't understand it. I don't care, so I don't understand it, and that hurts me when it comes to studying. So I study with him because he just could talk about political science all day, and he just loves it. And he's made me kind of, it's growing on me, you know what I mean? And I think if you meet people in that class that are good at that class, then it really helps you.
So a couple of things that they've said here. One, what you need to know about yourself, what you can do and what you can't do. Any of you in here consider yourself multitaskers? That's like Sonia's, I've got to do a couple things at once. Okay? Anyone not? You have to know that. And that affects how engaged you are in a class and what you do. I cannot do just one thing at a time. It's just nearly impossible for me to do that. But I have to find a way to stay engaged and not be distracting to the rest of the class. Okay? That's one thing. If, Sonia's drawing and stuff all of a sudden becomes a distraction for everyone around her, no matter how much it helps her, that is not appropriate behavior in class. She doesn't do that. I know her. So that works. And your question about how, kind of getting back to how you enjoy the classes, folks, some of that's going to change. You don't have a lot of choice. Sometimes when you come into your first semester of college, you've got to do certain things. One thing I did that helped me is all throughout my college career, I took a variety of levels of classes and variety of type. So while there was something that I may have to take that I didn't particularly enjoy, there was another class that I intentionally took because I knew it would be a lot more fun for me. So my classes were balanced. I didn't have the first couple of years of all things that I hated or didn't want to do and spend my last 2 or 3 years all on things in my major. So I balanced that schedule a little bit, which really helps in all this time management things because you're able to prioritize a little bit differently. Any other questions? Okay, one more question for these folks. Do you think your strengths play a part in how you manage your time? And if so, how?
Well, 2 of mine are futuristic and strategic, so I always write everything down and then plan what time of the day I'm going to do it and when I'm going to study, so I feel like that is both of those very much so.
Sure.
While it's on my mind, I was talking about going to the library and being a woo. I guess this answers that question perfectly. Seriously, I can sit in here and I just want to meet everyone, and I freak people out all the time because I just start talking to random people. But I think it's a lot of my studying, like, in certain areas. Like, some people do really well in the library, and then some people do well in the dorm, or, and I do better by myself because as much as I love having people around, I just can't concentrate. I have to, so that plays a huge part in my learning. And also it can help me, like I was saying earlier, about how I'm not scared to meet someone else who might be better at that subject than me. So.
Anything else from you two?
One of my strengths is achiever, and I think that plays a part in how I study because I have to make a list of everything that I do that day. I probably have about 5 lists in my bag right now. And they probably have all the same stuff on them too. But if I don't have a list of what I'm going to do, whether it be running errands or homework, then I don't get anything done. And I have to cross things off the list to feel like I've achieved stuff. And so making lists is one thing that helps me study and get my homework done.
Having context and connectedness, I write everything down, and everything's kind of coded and different, and I just, through my mind, that keeps running everything I have to do, the next place I have to be, and so that strength of just my mind, like connecting everything together all the time, that's why I write it down. So, because I'm a visual person, so if I can visualize that, I don't forget things, which is my major problem, is forgetting. But so that just helps me, those strengths help me to remember things and connect them together.
Good. Now, if you all will go back to your online textbook, the Strengths Quest stuff, in Chapter 3, it talks about your strengths and some of your study skills and things like that. And there's a whole chapter on career, which also relates to this as well, on how you manage your time and what will be good for you. The career chapter and the chapter on academic strengths are something you probably want to review at this point. So let's give our panel a hand. We'll let them get out of the spotlight.
Evelyn and I have a couple of resources that we wanted to show you before we continue on with our time management conversation. This first one is a great website that is through Dartmouth, and it's got all of these tools and things that you can use to help you learn how to manage your time. We'll make sure that this link gets to you in your small groups and everything, or emailed out to you. And something, this creating a master schedule I thought was particularly neat. I'll pull it up real quick. Maybe.
Now, one thing about this website, it is probably the best one that we've seen for college student time management. It's referenced by lots of other universities. You all need to look at it and pay attention to it because it is a resource that was brought up in class, which makes it fair game for any quizzes in the future. So you're going to want to take a look at it.
This I liked because you can put in when all of your different classes are. That way you don't just forget about a class, which I would hope at this point that you would know when all your classes meet and all that business. But, sometimes things slip your mind. So this kind of helps you break up. Let's say, do any of you have time breaks in between your classes? Okay, so you can take this schedule and fill in those breaks with, maybe going to the library and studying for that 50-minute time period instead of just kind of like hanging out and talking and not managing your time effectively. So that's one of the better resources. It's just a template for you to use to create your calendar if you need it on paper or if you want to add it to your electronic calendar. Something else, whoops, I hit that button. Time management tips, just some good pointers for, here's your list we were talking about, which will work for some of you for sure. This is some really good advice, reminders around the place, looking ahead in the month, prioritizing based off of, level of importance, things like that, which is something that we will talk about later. In small groups, you'll talk about your priorities and how much time you're actually spending on the things that you value. We also have a website. Franklin Covey offers some resources.
You might want to take a look at this. If any of you are familiar with the 7 Habits of the Highly Effective People or something like that, take a look there because this system is derived from that. Putting first things first, beginning with the end in mind, all of those sort of things. So it's a pretty good structure for those of you who want a lot of structure. It's really, really a good system. So take a look there, and I think you'll find some things that are helpful. But what we're showing you are just 2 things. We didn't want to show you 58 different websites. These are the best combinations of information that we could find. Now, what you have to do, because not everything works for everyone, is figure a lot of this stuff out on your own. So use your resources and ask questions about that. Now, we want to talk for the last few minutes a little bit about how your strengths play into time management. And this is kind of a new thing that we're starting to work with. So these are our thoughts so far.
We came up with these 4 areas that relate to time management. Your quickness of decision, how fast you can make a decision is essentially what that is. Management structure. Do you need a lot of structure or do you need little to no structure whenever you're planning your day or studying? Position, type of work. What is it that you enjoy? Do you need to think in a linear fashion, as in going from point A to Z, or are you a global thinker? Is it more, natural and organic for you? And then finally, the type of environment that you work best in. Fast-paced, slow-paced. What works for you? And keep in mind, we're going to hit on some strengths that really fit in with these categories in these domains, but not every strength is going to be represented in here because some depend on the other combination of strengths that you have. So as we go, you will see how this works.
So you all have your books where your strengths are listed? All of that? You need to be finding that so we can tell where everyone is. So again, those of you who are not bringing your books, you need to be in the habit of bringing that workbook with you.
That's not managing your time or your organizational skills very effectively. Okay, so we'll start with this quickness of decision. Again, how fast you can make a decision. We've got some strengths that lend themselves very naturally to making fast decisions. Competition, activator, self-assurance, achiever, adaptability, command, and strategic.
Anybody find a couple of yours on there? Quick thinkers?
See some hands. All right.
Good.
Our next one are more methodical thought process, and it takes you a little bit longer to get to that point, which is totally awesome. You've got analytical, deliberative, intellection, harmony, empathy, responsibility, restorative, discipline, and focus. Anybody else got this? All right, so as you're taking notes, because I know you're all taking notes very, every word that we say, which category do you fall into? Are you a quick decision maker, or is it more of a methodical process for you? Those who are in the middle, you might have an adaptable process. You can kind of work either way, whatever, situation fits you, whatever the situation calls for.
And this can help you figure out the kind of classes you want to take and also how you need to study and the kind of people you need to study with. So know if you're a quick thinker or a methodical thinker.
We also have management structure. Do you like high structure or low structure? So, for those of you who need a lot of structure in your day, consistency, analytical, competition, discipline, focus, deliberative, and achiever. Anybody have any of those strengths?
Where are you all? Do you all have calendars you keep very rigorously? Yeah.
Have a planner. There you go.
Good.
On the other end of the spectrum, we've got low structure, maximizer, individualization, connectedness, woo, adaptability, strategic, activator, self-assurance. So this is, I don't need the structure.
Yeah.
All right. And those days, how you plan your day looks differently than someone who has high structure. So keep that in mind as you think about, as Evelyn was saying, future careers, things like that.
Now, when you think about these two, college by nature, folks, is not highly structured. You have got to figure that out for yourself. So if you're a high structure person, you're going to have to put those things in place. If you're one of these low structure people, it is not an excuse for not getting something done. Okay? But by nature, we're not a very highly structured organization.
The next thing is the position or type of work. Do you like linear work or global work? So for our linear strengths, we've got deliberative, focus, discipline, consistency, and achiever. Anybody with those? Can I get a hand? There we go. All right, so you probably like working through your homework or your assignments kind of point by point. On the other hand, we've got global thinkers, context, includer, harmony, arranger, adaptability, connectedness, individualization, ideation, woo, and input. That's a lot. Yeah.
Global thinkers?
Global thinkers. This is something that you will come across in some of your classes. It might be a little bit more difficult to stay focused and to get your work done, but knowing that about yourself and how it works for you can help you plan class schedules in the future and things like that.
So those of you on this list, you're probably the people who need to doodle, who need to sit there and text on your phone, look at the ceiling and count the tiles, whatever. Do what you may need to do, but again, if it is causing a disruption to your faculty members or to the people around you, that is not appropriate. You can find ways to keep yourself engaged without doing this.
All right, and then last we've got environment. Do you like fast-paced or slow-paced? So our fast-paced, I keep snapping for some reason, I don't know why, but it seems like a fast-paced kind of thing to do. We've got activator, competition, strategic, command, achiever, ideation, and self-assurance. So who's got those? Let me see a hand.
Oh, there's a lot over here.
All right. So you guys are going to need some quicker kind of pace in your studying how you manage your time. Maybe you want to put a lot of things in your schedule so that way it helps you maximize or get the most out of your day that you can.
And if you're in graduate school one day and your classes all of a sudden are 2.5 or 3 hours long, you will find it painful for a while until you find a way to engage in the material. It will never move fast enough for you.
But for those of you who prefer the slow-paced action, that's awesome. It's right up there with you. You've got responsibility, input, discipline, focus, analytical, intellection, deliberative, restorative, and context. So anybody have any of those strengths?
Okay, good. Okay, now you need to put all of these things together because this is a quadrant of 4 things. And where you fall in these quadrants, in needing something or being an adaptable thinker or adaptable wherever, that's how you're going to manage your time. So this is how it looks in real life for us, okay?
Evelyn likes quick decisions, needs low structure. She's a global thinker and is fast-paced. I'm adaptable. I can go either way with how I make my decisions. I need low structure. I'm a global thinker, and I also have an adaptable pace, can work fast or slow. Jeff is...
Wave, Jeff. Be happy about this.
Hi, Jeff. Likes to make methodical decisions, work through the process. He needs high structure. He's an adaptable thinker, so he can go either way with that, and prefers a slow-paced environment. So that reflects how we all work together. I'm in the middle, kind of.
Yeah, thank goodness for Sarah in the middle there. We'd never make it. When you think about these things, though, they play into how you act in class, how you manage your time, how people perceive you even. So you need to be able to think about those things and find where you fall. Of the three of us, who do you think has the most detailed, rigorous calendar? Yeah, lives and dies by that calendar? Yeah. And what happens when it just doesn't go quite that way? Yeah, that's what happens. I think you all weren't the class last week when every piece of AV and audio, everything we had failed except for this one microphone. Every one of us who were here were like, thank goodness Jeff is not here. We would have to have him resuscitated at this point. He would have been on the floor. It just would not have worked. So,
on the other hand, we've got Evelyn, who the calendar, not as much of a, not as much of an issue. She has a calendar. It tells her where to go. But she is very happy to just kind of go through the day as problems come up, taking care of them and addressing them as needed.
Okay. So you all need to think about this. Figure out where things fit for you, because if you don't become adept at this, you might be in that, 40% that we don't get back? And we'd really hate for that to happen. But if you have questions or thoughts about this, let us know.
On a note, it's very rude to pack up before your teachers are done talking. So for future reference, you guys need to wait until the class is over. I know you're anxious to get out the door, but don't be disrespectful, because we don't want you guys to do that.
And we know who you are. You're people like me who are already trying to be thinking on to the next thing. But think about that. If there are things that we can help you with, if you are experiencing problems with this time management, all this kind of stuff, come and talk to us, because we want to be able to give you those resources. And so if you don't have any more questions or thoughts, remember you have 2 quizzes this week. And folks, if you don't do those, you're losing probably at least a letter grade. So get those things finished. All right, we'll see you all next week.